Modern steel versus tamahagane steel. Hello dear ronins, this is the last episode about tamahagane. So we have seen on part 1 melting, what is clay furnace, iron sand, charcoal blower, melting temperature. Then on part 2 we have seen precious steel from 2.5 tons of Kera, 200 kilos of tamahagane from 0.6 to 1.5% of carbon, named tamahagane, coming from Edo period, craft steel from clay furnace from 6th century, sagahagane pig iron called zuku mixed with iron called bukera, making 0.7% of carbon, shurikenjutsu white steel from Tenmon period since 6th century, zuku and kera tatara since 6th century, sagegane pure steel less slag from zuku method. Modern steel is very close from zuku method. The Sengoku Jidai period asked a lot of steel with fast production that should explain the Kera Oshi method had been so popular and became the main method known in the 20th century. In part 3 we have seen construction, steel types, monoblock, 2 steel block, laminated block, geometry, shape. In part 4 we have seen forge, folding, forging, quenching. In part 5 we have seen myth. Tamahagane had been from many different quality levels and iron craft through Japanese history, from Yoshida town to Hunan to Shugoku mountains, with zuku oshi tatara or kera oshi tatara, making tamahagane mass production, or sagegane or sagahagane, or swordsmiths themselves made and still make self-craft tamahagane, folding impure raw steel for making a very tough and sharp blade. However, smelting steel from past was poor quality steel compared to industrial modern steel because of limited peak temperature for melting the steel and removing slag due to limited refractory materials of the furnace. Limitation of 1300 degrees Celsius with Tatara Edo furnace instead of 1500 to 3000 degrees Celsius with modern industrial steel made a huge difference of quality with a purest iron ore and purest steel without impurities in present days. In part 6, craft, we have seen that the best would be mono steel from 0.6 to 0.8% of carbon, blade as a mix between soft and hard to make very good kawagane as koto from Kamakura era. The blade is a uchi katana curve for practicity as Edo period, tsuka with mekugi ana, one mekugi, saya with buffalo horn for safety, fitting strong and harmonious, quality materials from steel with pure iron and excellent cable folding distribution that can cut omote, bamboo, paper, kabuto without breaking on the edge. 7. Practice. We have seen that it requires healthy joints condition that need excellent weight distribution balance and excellent components as steel, wood, ray, skin and other items. It has to be safe, strong and very sharpened sword. On part 8 it was my thoughts. Craft from Japan is just better. They spend around 1 to 2 years for manufacturing the sword with 1 to 14 craftsmen depending on manufacturing work distribution, with pure iron craft steel. With 1300 years of sword craft history, there is no comparison with another country for making katanas. Even the costs are 10 to 30 times more for a strong, sharpened, safe and authentical modern katana sword as Shin Sakuto. In part 9, modern steel and katana from China. The yield is different between traditional craft steel, tamahagane and modern steel. But as affirmed this knife maker creating his own tamahagane in Japan, modern steel use welding that can occur default on the blade instead of iron sponge tamahagane. You can see pictures, video on China Longquan Then depending on replica or practical or high practical sword, the work will be different with modern steel. With just cutting some plates of steel as replica, or forging tool steel bars as practical sword, or making crafts traditional steel as high practical sword in Longquan. The same for fittings depending on the budget, different types of details on the craft work for every step of fitting craft, and quality materials. So you can see that there is a huge difference between plates, steel for replica, forging tool bars, so forging tool steel bars for practical sword, and making Chinese tamahagane, so craft steel for high practical sword. There is a huge numbers of hours, difference of skilled swordsmiths or manufacturers, and it changed a lot the product at the final aspect for practicity. Then modern steel from Japan. So this is a big subject that is really interesting, the Gunsui To project. Kanetomo has been hired by Japanese army as swordsmith during World War II wartime activities because tamahagane was very difficult to find since Meiji era for yield and needs of Japanese army. Gunsui Hagane industrial steel produced in Japan by Gunma Hydroelectric Industries in Gunma. They were using industrial bars of steel produced from hydroelectricity furnace making Gunsui steel. Kanemoto worked to create mass production swords for army with his son Kanemune. They improved Gunsui Hagane to the level of tamahagane with several tests. Gunsui To is monosteel from mixing hard and soft modern steel for making Japanese sword. Gunsui Hagane is Gunsui steel invented by the engineer Takeo Miyaguchi that became president of Gunma Hydroelectric Industries Corp. Irons and use for Gunsui To was coming from Kamogawa Beach. Mantetsu To modern steel from Mantetsu Industry contains 0.57% of carbon in the skin steel. Modern steel ASTM 1075 contains 0.7 to 0.8% of carbon, and in comparison, Gunsui steel contains 0.72 to 0.75% of carbon. The Mantetsu To Japanese sword, or Koa Ishin sword, is laminate construction modern steel sword designed by Yosuke Matsuoka, Mantetsu president and foreign minister from beginning of the 20th century before World War II. He said, "By the discovered data, I will ask what a Japanese sword is." Mantetsu means South Manchuria Railway. Mantetsu Railway Company, founded in 1906, developed various enterprises as ore industry, coal mine, shaft, iron manufacture, city construction. The company is named Manchurian Industrial Development Company. This mega industry, Mantetsu, had the capital of the whole scale of a national budget of Japan. Mantetsu concentrated technical power and analyzed thoroughly the Japanese sword, having held the strong point and the fault of steel material and a sword making. They succeeded in the creation of a Japanese sword excellent in scientific power. Japan had imported malleable iron from Sweden, and Western world iron ore from Manchuria has been used for making Gunto Japanese sword for military purpose in China by Dr. Kazuharu Kusaka from Mantetsu Central Experiment Station. He made good iron sponge with electrical furnace for having mass industrial steel. This sword experiment was very close from the Koto of Kamakura era. They ordered to manufacture 150,000 Gunto in 1937. The excellent gunto was still lacking for the needs of Japanese army, so the president Matsuoka of Mantetsu Company tried his best for upgrading manufacturing and production yield in cooperation with the military from Kanto Gun Army in December 1937. The founder of Mantetsu Sword was Mr. Kodo Suzuki, the first head of Mantetsu factory. The Mantetsu sword was called the new Japanese sword. In the trowel cut tamahagane, this sword cut well and was strong to the break and the bend. Mantetsu uses the Dr. Kazuharu Kusaka's malleable iron, which Dr. Kusaka developed. Core was with soft steel and the skin steel with hard steel. From Mantetsu industry, both steel were welded together. Laminated construction for Mantetsu to, the hardness of the edge and the flexibility of the core were more precisely controlled during manufacturing by industrial and scientific new approaches of Mantetsu. The figure and size of a blade were determined by instruction of military. 0.57% of carbon in skin and 0.23% of carbon in core were very close construction as a kobuze. This sword did not break, did not bend, and was aimed at cheap abundance. Great advantage of Mantetsu too was to not containing titanium in the steel because iron ore was not from Japan but from Manchuria in China. Trial cut with Mantetsu to. 1. With 1.5 cm diameter bamboo and straw mat of 21.5 cm of diameter on Kesa and Suihegiri successful cut. Second, living thing cut. Head of a pig of 97.5 kilos, a length around the head of 85 centimeters. It was a successful cut. 3. Hitting a blade on a 20 cm diameter wood stick, only 3 mm on the blade as deformation, no chip or crack on the edge, no breaking on the sword. 4. Test 4. Soft steel board of 0.15 cm thickness, 3 cm of width, and 180 cm of length was cut from 1 to 4 sheets on piles. No breaking, no bending. Test 5. Cutting bamboo and acacia of 6 cm diameter, no breaking, no bending. Test 6. Low temperature test for Kwantung Army with a blade at -40 degrees Celsius during one night, then hitting with it against an iron board. No breaking, no bending. A traditional Japanese sword will have issues with a very cold weather. The Mantetsu sword is resilient with cold temperature. This is the major advantage of the sword. Test 7. Cutting 2 books, volume of 620 pages, no breaking, no bending. The strongness of Mantetsu is the same than a koto iron, 0.5 to 0.6 of carbon. In the steel, this sword created by researches of Dr. Kazuharu Kusaka was a pipe of iron put into a steel pipe, mechanically welded together, then forged, then hardened in an electrical furnace. This modern and scientific new Japanese sword was not forged by a swordsmith. It was a mass production sword, cold resistant, without relying on the will of the swordsmith. It was made of Kusaka pure iron refined in Manchukuo. It was made of real steel. 11. Kamakura era model, the best katana ever? Yes, I think so in matter of carbon content, with 0.7 to 0.8% of carbon. Monosteel mixture with low and high carbon content, making a very resilient sword for shocks. If we check apparently the studies during pre-World War II of Godsuito, Mantetsuto, and Kanto Gun Army test on Gunto around 1937. With Sharpie test The Gunsuito seem to prove that comparing with tamahagane laminated katana, monosteel gunto from modern industry around 1937 had better result of strongness if we drop an 11 kilos weight on a blade from 95 centimeters of height, so the Sharpie test. Folding process of tamahagane laminated steel katana doesn't improve more than 30% of strongness, and after 2 fold it doesn't become stronger and resilient for shocks. Instead of Gunsuito from electrical furnace and monosteel, 0.7% of carbon as koto, enduring 95 centimeters of height shocks from 11 kilos drop. Laminated tamahagane swords from swordsmiths Kurihara, Miyeri and Atano were having edge deficit between 45 and 55 centimeters of height with drop of 11 kilos. So monosteel of Gunsuito is superior in matter of strongness and resilience as koto found during shocks instead of laminated construction and not refined iron ore from tamahagane craft steel containing more slag and impurities, making the blade weaker because of higher carbon content, 1% of carbon on the skin, laminating construction and poor ironstone quality, not refined. The shape of the Kamakura era is not very useful for modern days. It was made for horse combat, but we are talking here about koto blade construction and type of steel. In matter of shape, it appears that gunto and modern days shinsakuto are made with uchi katana size and shape of Edo period. How should be the best modern katana? Definitely, as koto is, we think about these different studies from a researcher in university in America that analyzed, break some nihonto and analyze their carbon structure, or if we see articles from gunto study, and koto from Kamakura era is definitely the best model of katana construction. As these two documents, timeline and evolution from koto to modern to, I don't have all the answers to understand all this information from these two documents, but many questions. What is alloy steel mixture? What is the difference between alloy steel mixture and ordinary steel mixture? Why modern toe with ordinary steel pure one sheet forging is the worst and modern toe with alloy steel mixture one sheet forging is the best? Precisely, I don't have all the answers. If we follow a test history blades documents made by American metallurgist researcher from university, monosteel koto 0.5 to 0.8% of carbon from Muromachi era has the lower percentage of carbon during a time period of war and the percentage of carbon upgrade during peacetime with Edo period. So alloy steel, if we look at this site, is containing various other mineral add properties as aluminium, copper, manganese, molybdenum, silicon, vanadium and others. What would means alloy steel mixture? Steel is already an alloy of carbon and iron. If we follow the Wikipedia definition, steel is an alloy of carbon and iron. So I guess the answer would be about which of other mineral adds making specific alloy steel mixture a very precise chemical identity, with nickel, manganese, chromium, vanadium, silicon, boron, copper, titanium, tungsten and other for making a great monosteel mixture alloy. Or maybe as Kamakura era, a steel mixture from Zuku or Keraoshi method combining iron pig with iron, making a kawagane of 0.7 to 0.8% of carbon, very strong and resilient koto as steel mixture, one sheet forging. I have experienced my own with battodo and tameshigiri, modern steel, monosteel, 1045, 1060, 1095, T10, real Damascus with 1060, and T10, Chinese tamahagane, Japanese tamahagane, tool steel Korean Moto-Hara sword, and the more resilient on bamboo cutting and wood cutting were tool steel from Moto-Hara and mono steel 1060 Nohi Enboi from Chinese brand Yarino and Zonwain Dojo Pro, because it didn't crack and didn't bend during bamboo cut. So that proves that koto, I think, is a kind of the way for practitioner. Even I prefer 1095 or T10 for cutting mats or paper during tamashige practice. Koto model monosteel with pure iron and pure coke from modern Chinese or Korean swords industry and steel industry are great for practice and will be the best for combat if we think feudal times. I do not have answer of what is difference between alloy steel mixture one sheet forging and ordinary steel mixture one sheet forging and ordinary steel pure as previous document, but I experienced real Damascus with modern steel from Dragon King Chinese brand with C-Wave, and it is a mixture of alloy steel 9260 as 0.6% of carbon and T10 as 1.05% of carbon. So it should give something around 0.8% of carbon, homogeneous in matter of carbon content in the blade, if I am correct. As koto from Kamakura, maybe with purer steel from modern industry. That would explain why C-Wave, a thin blade, is so resilient for cutting wood without cracking or making chip instead of a modern monosteel T10 with bamboo as Okaze from Bushiden Chinese craft, where I had many issues on the blade. I will let my thoughts there about monosteel koto and what is the best alloy steel mixture as Gunsuito for tamashigiri and combat. It is very clear that the best modern steel katana steel or tamahagane modern steel katana would have both the same quality of iron ore or iron sand, the same for charcoal, so the steel would be equivalent in quality for both, just more expensive to create a sword with tamahagane modern steel because more artistic, traditional, and taking more time for manufacturing. This great koto monosteel kawagane katana would have differential tempered blade with very beautiful hamon for very hard and sharp edge. The shape would be uchi katana with geometry shinogizukuri for cutting paper, omote and bamboo without weld line for having a stronger blade if modern steel, no weakness point without weld line. Welding forge with modern steel make it a weaker blade? Yes, if we listen to the knife Japanese swordsmith. This steel mixture making monosteel as koto, is it close from Damascus? I do not have this information. This is just a thought because I have seen Damascus from C-Wave being very resilient instead of T10 with shocks, but I do not know exactly how is made Damascus from Dragon King and if real Damascus is equivalent of koto alloy steel mixture when sheet forging, but it sounds pretty equivalent in my opinion. Does modern industrial steel has homogeneous steel in matter of carbon content? Yes, if we listen to Swordsmith's interview and Gunto studies from middle of 20th century for Second World War purposes. Which steel is better for modern katana? As we have seen, if no weld line, same steel quality, it will be the work of the swordsmith forging a one-sheet koto construction without impurities and the craft of fittings that will make the difference for practice. I hope you enjoyed, as me, this final episode about tamahagane, metallurgy and history. I wish you to stay focused, peaceful mind and body healthy. See you soon for next episode on AERØHEAD.